Welcome to the Action Network podcast presented by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. I'm your host today, Brendan Glasheen. This week, Week 11 NFL Best Bets. Joined this week by our two usual guests. We have Brandon Anderson of Action Network, Luke Swain, Vegas Refund of Action Network, and our third chair today is being held down by the touchdown bettor himself, touchdown show host, Jill Gallant. We have the crew back together to go through Week 11, the slate, and we come up with 9 best bets, 3 from each of the guys. You can find the video version of this podcast. You may have done so already. If you have, please subscribe to our Action Network YouTube page. If you've already done so, like the video. We greatly appreciate it. Also, if you're listening, which is where most of you probably are, listening on your wherever you get your podcast, please leave a review and a 5-star rating. We appreciate those too. And any review, positive, negative, we like the feedback. It's helpful for us. And again, you can find Jill, Brandon, Luke individually in the free award-winning Action Network app. Not just the bets they give out today, but other things they add throughout the course of the week, building up to each NFL Sunday. We went 5-4 in Week 10, another above 500 week. We're really, chipping away here at this record. And if you include Brandon Anderson's look-ahead picks, we're 2 games over 500. So we're working our way to being profitable here on this Best Bets podcast going back to Week 1. Brandon, let's start with you. Week 11, best bet number 1. What do you have?
Yeah, it's a tough slate this week. We get a really fun game Thursday night. We get a really fun game Monday night. We get a lot of weird, long, we've got, I think, 7 games at a touchdown or longer on Sunday. I think 5 games around double digits or longer, depending on where a couple of them end up. So it's a hard slate to pick between. I'm going to pick one of those long underdogs to start out. Give me the New York Jets, +7 at the Bills. Look, we watched this game, the Monday night opener. We all watched it. We saw Aaron Rodgers, a couple of plays in the game go down. We saw the Jets win, and everybody knows the Bills should have won that game. Right? We all saw it happen. The Bills were much better. This is not that Bills team anymore. I just think the Bills are broken right now. Right after that game, the Bills were the right play. They were scoring 41 points a game the next 3 games after that Jets loss. They responded. But since then, 6 games, 20.5 points a game. The offense has fallen off. I know we fired Ken Dorsey this week. The scoring has not been there. And I think that this is a pretty tough time to turn over your play calling duties from Dorsey to Joe Brady, who I like, but you got to do that against this defense, this Jets defense, with a few days to install whatever you're doing with the offense or whatever plays you're going to be calling. I think it's a tough matchup. The Jets defense really has become everything it was supposed to be. The elite pass defense, probably the best unit in the NFL right now. By DVOA, they're basically measuring up even with the Browns the last 4 to 6 weeks as the top defense. So they've always been a problem against Josh Allen. Last 3 games for Allen against the Jets, he's averaging 196 yards per game passing, so under 200, 2 touchdowns, 6 interceptions in those games. All 3 one-score games. That gets us home here. 7 of the last 10 Jets-Bills games, one-score games. So I just think the line is too high. Bills defense is second to worst in the NFL by DVOA the last 6 weeks. Pass defense especially has been bad. They're leaky against wide receiver 1. That's the one thing the Jets have, right? So I think Garrett Wilson can have a good game. I think the Jets can hang enough on early downs to at least give themselves a chance offensively. Last 6 games, we talked about that stretch earlier. Buffalo in that stretch is 2-4. Their 2 wins were by 1 score over the Giants and by 1 score over the Bucs. It's not a very good team. Honestly, are we positive the Bills are even the better team here? I'm not. I'm going to take the Jets +7.
Okay, and as we know, Buffalo, not that it matters all that much against Zach Wilson. He's pretty terrible regardless, but the Bills are also really banged up. But maybe that's a soft landing for Zach Wilson to look better. And by the way, a lot of folks at Action have been betting that first half under, and that number keeps coming down too. So you're getting a touchdown with a total of 40, getting the team that's an underdog with the touchdown. That's always a good sign too for you.
I mean, the Jets have been Josh Allen's kryptonite, and
yeah,
in all of the games that they've been his kryptonite, Josh Allen, this offense is playing extremely well. Now it's scary to think what's going to happen with them playing probably the worst that they have in the last 2 years.
Is it fair to say, just from a narrative perspective, just if we're having a drink and we're all shooting the breeze, this is the first time Josh Allen's really faced crisis, right? Is that fair? Like crisis as a peak quarterback at this point in his career? Is that fair?
Crisis as a peak quarterback. I was going to say the crisis when he was like not an NFL quarterback for 2 seasons. We'll call that a crisis.
That wild card game a few years ago against the Texans. Yeah, he was running around with his head chopped off. I mean, like knowing that he's top tier crisis.
I mean, it's making me crazy, honestly, because like you see on Twitter and I see tweets about like he has elite in every statistical category. If the Bills had a winning record, Josh Allen would be the favorite to win MVP. And like honestly, if you just watch these games, like that pick before the half on Monday was so bad. Like I don't care about the stats. I don't care about anything. Like it's just not working right now for him, and it's just. Yeah.
One of the funny notes about this game, so obviously I bet interceptions a lot, and Josh Allen leads the NFL in interceptions, and right now both him and Zach Wilson have the exact same odds to throw an interception in this game at minus 165. So what does that tell you?
Well,
I was going to bring up the interception.
Amount of times.
I was going to bring up the interceptions line too. I looked for that one because I wanted to bet it here, and I was just like, oh man. That's pretty insulting to take a guy that a week ago was the MVP favorite and is now basically like 60% to definitely have an interception. You pretty much have to bet multiple interceptions here, which he probably will do based on his Jets history, but to get any value on it. So yeah, it's a tough spot. I'm not going to play the money line here. I'm just going to take the 7. I do think that, to me, the narrative you mentioned, Brendan, I think the narrative is that this is ugly and gross, but the Bills like pulled out and saved the season, at least for now. I think that's probably where this heads, but we'll see. I'll take the 7.
Okay, we spent a little extra time there dumping on the Bills, so we'll have to move it along. Luke, with your first bet, please.
I'm going to go with the Cardinals +5 at the Texans, which this one really is like Kyler, like he is so back. Like if you just watch that game, he looked comfortable. It's honestly incredible how quick he looked. Like there were some plays he was just getting out of pressure, and like that's where he makes like his plays, or he's not looking to run. He's kind of just maneuvering around, which he looked fantastic. And then when he started to run, you can kind of see that he started to drag his leg, but Kyle looked amazing. James Conner was back. This team every single week, no matter how bad they've played, they are very motivated. There's no tanking going on with this Cardinals team. Going against the Texans defense that is bottom half in every single category currently. And like CJ Stroud is playing out of his mind. They have been an extremely explosive offense, and that offense is definitely going to get theirs. But if you look at the games that they've had the most success in this season, it's against the Steelers, Bengals, and Tampa, which all 3 of those teams are the bottom 3 teams in explosive plays allowed. And the games that they've had like mediocre or subpar offensive games are against the Ravens, Saints, and I can't even read my handwriting. There's a 4th team. But they put 9, 13, 19, and 20 points up against those 4 teams that are top 13 in explosive plays allowed. So you can clearly see the difference between the two. And Cardinals are the 8th defense in terms of explosive plays allowed. So if there's a trend between those 2 scenarios, like it definitely favors the Cardinals defense in this spot. And let's not forget that this Texans team just lost to the Panthers. They should have lost to the Bucks. They're still going to get theirs, but I don't trust this defense. Kyle looks totally back, probably better. He looked better last week than he did any time I watched him last season. James Conner clearly is a huge difference maker, maybe one of the most important running backs to their team in the entire league. And then you look at Kyler as an underdog. He's 21-11, which is 66%, and he's 13-5 on the road as an underdog. So Kyler as an underdog has clearly like thrived. And this Texans team has been more of a 2.5-point favorite this entire season yet. So this is a totally different spot for them, laying 5 against a Cardinals team on the road. That it's just a new spot that they're continuing to be America's public darling. They burned me last week against the Bengals, but hopefully we can get home with a +5 here. I just can't get to this number.
All right. Very good. Yeah. And Kyler loved throw to the tight end. Trey McBride, he looked good. And it's clear that they held Kyler out those extra few weeks to really get him right. I'm wondering if that had something to do with their win and loss record because of where their draft pick is right now. But of course, he comes back last week and they win. Jill, your first pick has a connection to this game.
Yeah, so this one's tough because I feel like I don't want to disagree with Luke here on how Kyler looked because, again, it's all about subjective. Like, if he thinks he looked good, I believe Luke. But for me, the statistics did not add up to seeing Kyler Murray looking as good as I thought he was. So that's why I'm going to take an interception in this game for Kyler to throw a pick at -115. Now, here's why I'm just in a little bit of a disagreement with Luke because he did have obviously some spectacular runs, like that run last week on 3rd down to extend the play. That was amazing. But he was also only 52% passing on almost 30 pass attempts. He was 2 for 9 on 3rd down throwing the ball. And this Falcons defense isn't that good. And part of it could be rust, but really the reason is because there's just a lot of lack of talent on the Cardinals. Like, look, I'm not going to say that Trey McBride didn't look good, but let's not pretend like he's a top 10 tight end in the NFL. Same thing with Hollywood Brown, Rondale Moore. They're not really going to win a ton of one-on-one matchups. And the other thing about interceptions here, especially with Kyler, is I feel like we kind of like got zapped by like the Men in Black here, like where we're forgetting what he's done in his career. But he had 7 picks in 10 games last year. Historically, in his career, he has thrown 42 interceptions in 58 games. That's 72% of every game he has played. Now, you could say, well, Jules, you're just cherry picking. And it's like, okay, let's look at all the splits. Let's exclude his rookie year. It's still 70%. If you go through the Kingsbury era, it's still at 71%. So again, like it's not like I'm just looking at, oh, look at this specific slant or this specific split. It's in his entire career. So the reason why we're getting -115 is because they won that game. Had the Cardinals lost, this would probably be closer to -130, -140. I think this Texans defense getting a little bit more improved now. Derek Stingley was back last week. That's why they did have 2 picks last week on Joe Burrow. So this isn't me disagreeing with Luke saying they can't cover the 5. This is me just saying that I think Kyler Murray still maybe isn't all the way back. And with that talent around him, I think he's more prone to throw an interception than not. So I'm going to take him to throw a pick at -115.
Yeah, when I say he's like back, I meant like off an ACL. I was expecting to see like a knee brace on his knee, didn't have a knee brace, and just not the explosive Kyler we were used to. I was not expecting last week, and honestly, we got way more in terms of really with his legs than I ever expected.
I wasn't expecting it either, Luke, though, because even last week they had his anytime touchdown odds around +240. And last year, before the injury, his range was around +150 to +175. So I think even sportsbooks weren't sure if he was going to be all the way back. And then, of course, he scores a rushing touchdown. You're not going to see his odds above +200 likely the rest of the year.
Right.
All right. Yeah, the Texans are getting healthier, both fronts, offensively on the line and also in their defensive front. So that could set up well for you too. All right, Brandon, what do you got? You're going to go to the prop market for your second one.
I am. I almost went with the side on this one. I'm going to go to the Raiders and Dolphins game, and I tried to talk myself into the Raiders. I think this line is way too long on their side, but I'm going to play the reason I think the line is too long, and that's Josh Jacobs. So give me Josh Jacobs over 61.5 rushing yards. Look, life is great for the Raiders right now. Antonio Pierce is there. They're 2-0. They're smoking stogies in the locker room. Like, life is great when you face Tommy DeVito and Zach Wilson. So this is not that. They got to face a real offense now. But a thing that I've noticed during those games, and kind of what I expected, Antonio Pierce, tough guy, linebacker. What are you going to do? Play defense and run the football. So Josh Jacobs, the last 2 weeks, in the debut for Pierce, 26 carries, 98 yards, and 2 scores. Last week, 27 carries, 116 yards. He's not really been more efficient. That's still basically 4 yards a carry, but he's had the 2 highest carry total of the season. He's leading the league right now, I think, by like 26 or 27 carries. So this is last year's rushing leader. The offensive line has been pretty good. They continue to outperform expectations. And the Dolphins, even though I do think their defense is actually playing better, that's mostly the pass defense. That's Jalen Ramsey. It's the secondary. The run defense can still be got, basically. They're 7th worst in run DVOA defensively. This season, 6 running backs against Miami have had at least 15 carries. And Jacobs for sure will get at least 15 carries. 5 of those 6 went over this rushing line. So I think that's the formula for the Raiders. You got a rookie quarterback on the road against this high-powered offense. What are you going to do? Protect your quarterback, run the ball, chew up the clock, try to keep the offense off the field. Pretty standard formula. So I like Jacobs. I'm not going to do escalator on this one here. I think just taking the traditional over is right. To me, I think this line should be more like in the 70s, even high 70s. I've been talking on my power rankings column. I think there's value on Jacobs to lead the league in rushing again. Also, I got that at 28-1 last week. I think it's still 12-1 at books out there. He's 3 yards off of second place right now, and he's getting this huge workload under Pierce. So I'm going to play it this game, but I think you can play it for the season too. Jacobs over 61.5 yards.
So I realized he only had 2 catches in the Jets game, but could I ask you why you might not be looking at rushing and receiving because of the possible game script of the Raiders trailing? I mean, Brandon, let's be honest. You're hoping this game stays 1-score game, tight for the first half at minimum to keep the ground game formidable for the Raiders.
Yeah, I that's a good question. I would hope that, of course. And like I said, that's kind of part of the angle is that I do think that the line stays close. I honestly would make this like closer to 7, and it's almost 2 touchdowns now. Like it just keeps going up, which to me, that tells me I just must be missing something. I'm evaluating wrong. I shouldn't be off by a touchdown. So that's why I'm not on the Raiders here. But I honestly just think that the Raiders are going to run the ball either way. I hope it stays close, but I think that like it's Aiden O'Connell on the road against a tough secondary. Like you don't have a get out of jail free card. You only really can just keep trying to run the ball. They don't have a lot of other options. Obviously, you got Devontae Adams, but I just think part of the reason here why I'm sticking with the rushing is I think they feed Jacobs either way. So I hopefully it stays close. That's for the better. But even if they're down, I don't know if they really have too many other options, but just keep running the ball.
Okay. All right, Luke, you have another side for us. Second one, please.
Yes, I'm going to go with the Rams, which currently are +1 hosting the Seahawks, which this is definitely a tough week. And there's a lot of double-digit spreads. There's a lot of higher, like as Brandon said, touchdown or more. And in a week that's tough, like this Rams +1, I wish I was getting a better price, honestly. But at the same time, like this Seahawks team, I just can't trust anymore. I've bet on them. I've gotten burned by them multiple times this year in games that they shouldn't have covered that they covered. Then last week, that 4th down touchdown that the Commanders had was just truly painful. Which
Sean Kerner yesterday on one of our shows, Happy Hour, a Wednesday night show on our YouTube page, Sean Kerner gave out Seahawks under 9.5 wins at plus money last night. So that shows he's down on them too.
So this Seahawks team, I'm kind of just off of right now, and you really just I can't trust them going against a Rams team who has been fighting the injury bug and is coming off of their bye week. That should be healthier. And really the key to this whole thing is really checking the Stafford practice reports and seeing if he was a full participant in the practices, which yesterday he was, which I'm going to assume he is today and tomorrow. We're going to get a healthy Stafford on Sunday. So it is a thumb injury, and those things can happen any play and re-aggravate it, which is probably the concern. But if you saw week 1, Stafford probably against the Seahawks team in Seattle, Stafford looked like Stafford on the lines. He was slinging around, and that without Cooper Kupp, who he has now. And Stafford just dices the zone. And the Seahawks play at a very high zone rate. So I don't see much that is going to stop this Rams offense going against a Seahawks team that I just can't trust. The Rams play zone a lot, which is what Geno likes. But again, Geno, to me, feels like he's starting to come back down to earth and be the quarterback that we thought he was the entire time. So I'll just take this Rams team at +1. I wouldn't lay +1, pick on money line, whatever it is. So Rams at home.
Okay, we're recording on a Thursday afternoon, so of course you're not going to hear any picks for Baltimore and Cincinnati, but really the game of the weekend is Monday night. Kansas City hosting Philadelphia, Super Bowl rematch. And we do have a couple of plays featured in that game. Jill, I need you, Jill, when you give it this analysis, because it seems kind of obvious, you need to tell me what, you got to give me the scenario as to why this won't happen. What is it?
Okay, well, the bet is Jalen Hurts for an anytime touchdown, and why it won't happen is he gets hurt. Because if he doesn't get hurt, if they get within the 5-yard line, it's almost likely very likely to happen rather, because he leads the most unstoppable play in the NFL. So for context, this is around plus 135. Why I bring that up is because he hasn't been above plus 105 all season. And for reference as well, these two teams, they played in the Super Bowl. He had minus 110 odds to score in that game. Well, he rushed for 3 touchdowns. So, and that's the thing about this offense is that once they get within the 5-yard line, they're pretty predictable because they are so efficient at what they do. He's got 7 touchdowns this year, 7th in the NFL in red zone carries. All of his touchdowns have been scored inside the 5-yard line. And this Chiefs defense, I think this is the reason why we're getting a little bit of a premium here, is because this Chiefs defense has been pretty good against the run. But over the last 4 games, teams are averaging around 120 rushing yards per game. The Broncos ran all over them, 2 touchdown scores on the ground. And this running attack in the NFL from the Eagles, they're going to likely do everything they can to keep Mahomes off the field. And I mean, after what happened in the Super Bowl last year, they're going to be foaming at the mouth to be able to just take on. Like, I don't get too much into this revenge game narrative, but this game does mean something for the Eagles in this spot to be able to prove, that they're not this fraudulent NFC team because of the way that they've won games. So again, Jalen Hurts, they're going to make a statement in this game. I'm not going to 100% say that the Eagles will win, but I definitely feel that Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown should be minus odds. So we're getting it at plus 135. So I think you need to grab it.
Okay. I stole that from BJ Cunningham because we were doing the baseball podcast during the World Series, and he would say, Brendan, let me tell you how this won't hit. And he would basically have like one sentence and be like, and you just nailed it, unless he gets hurt or something absurd happens. So that's why I put it to you like that, because I just don't, the way you explained it, it just doesn't make any sense to me why you're getting a really good price. So yeah, go grab it now if you can. Brandon, also related to this game, you have an angle for Chiefs Eagles.
I do. And I came on the pod last week. Joe, you weren't on, but I came on with my first anytime touchdown bet. Austin Eckler, you helped me with the odds. We hit it. I was 4 for 4 in touchdown bets in my article last week. So I'm a touchdown guy now too. Travis Kelce, anytime touchdown, minus 115 in that huge Monday night game. It's just a great game. It's like the amuse-bouche before Thanksgiving week. We got this on Monday night. It's perfect to lead into this awesome week of sports. So you had to have something here. I think to me in this game, Joe, I think I like your pick. I think the Chiefs' run defense is the weak spot, but with the Eagles, it's the pass defense. Run defense has been great for Philly. They're second in the league DVOA, but they're bottom 10 against the pass. They are dead last by DVOA against tight ends. Well, guess who's a pretty good tight end?
Yeah.
Travis Kelce. This is kind of by design for the Eagles, right? They didn't really go out and bring in linebackers and safeties. They cheaped out on that area. They did that on purpose. They want pass rushers. They want the line. They want secondary. They didn't really do the middle of the field. That's analytics. It's not going to work great against Travis Kelce. This is the price you pay here. So fantasy-wise, they're bottom 5 against tight ends. Hunter Henry has a touchdown against them. TJ Hawkinson, Logan Thomas, Jake Ferguson. Those guys all score touchdowns. And Travis Kelce is like 10 times the player of them. So I think, too, one thing I like about both these touchdown bets, these are guys that have not been healthy, Hurts or Kelce, and now they're off the bye week. So I think for Travis Kelce, this is the healthiest he's been all season. He's out partying in Argentina. Now he's ready to come back. We're ready to go. He had, in the Super Bowl, a touchdown, plus 6 catches, 81 yards. And I think with the nature of this game, I think the Chiefs treat this like a playoff game. And in a playoff games, Travis Kelce shows up with huge numbers. He's had 14 games in the playoffs with Patrick Mahomes, 15 touchdowns in 14 games. He's found the end zone at least once in 11 out of the 14 games, 79%. So I think you treat this game like that. And the real analysis you want here, Taylor Swift is going to be at the game. Her Eagles, her Chief. It's the Kelce Bowl. We had that whole thing of the Super Bowl. Supposedly, some TMZ reporting for you. Taylor's parents are going to be there. So the Swifts and the Kelces are meeting for the first time. Come on. He's not going to find the end zone in that game. Karma is the guy in the Chiefs scoring touchdowns for me. Travis Kelce, minus 115.
I absolutely love Taylor Swift and Kelce. Like, I'm one of the suckers that is just like all about the videos.
Sorry when you said Karma's that guy on the Chiefs and you didn't all look like the dancers. She said that. Brandon Anderson said that on the podcast. Wow.
I was going to bring up a point about Brandon's pick here, because you mentioned about how Kelce, if they're going to treat this like a playoff game, how efficient Kelce has been in the playoffs. Well, if you go through those same game logs, this is part of the reason why I took this last year in the Super Bowl. I took Travis Kelce for the first touchdown. It was around plus 350, but first team touchdown. And you can get it around plus 300 to plus 350. It's probably going to be in that range again this game. And if you go back and look through all those playoff game logs since 2021, guess who scored the first Chiefs touchdown in almost all of them? Kelce. So just looking, if you're looking to find a little bit more of a spicy angle to that, instead of taking minus 115, but again, minus 115, pretty solid odds for Kelce in this matchup.
Yeah, well, we'll take the minus 115 and get on the wins here for our pod, but I don't mind the first touchdown bet. I know you hit that one. That's been a good angle in the playoffs, so that's a good one to spice up the odds a little bit. I'll treat it like an escalator.
Or just take him to score anytime touchdown first half for those odds.
Yep, you could do that too. Yep.
Plus 175, I'm seeing. And first team touchdown scorer in that plus 200 range. Plus 220 range, excuse me.
Wow. Okay. Premium.
All right. I just got blindsided by this Taylor Swift thing that I forgot who's next. Luke, you're next. Thank you. Luke has a side for us. We're moving off of this game. We're backtracking a bit. What do you got?
I'm going to go, it's pretty gross, but I'm going to go with the Browns. Currently, I would say money line, which is probably minus 115. Really, this is just one that, like, this Steelers team, like, there's just nothing about them other than their record of being 6-3 that is good. They've been outgained in every single game this season, and they just continue to get lucky interceptions or fumbles or whatever it is at the end of games that they somehow recover every time, and or pick them off of tips, or just getting extremely lucky and winning games. And yes, Deshaun is out, which is why we're honestly betting it, or else I wouldn't be laying the Browns at, I think they were like minus 3.5 with Deshaun. But with him out, the line came down just too much for me. And then a Browns defense that is like, at least they're the best. They're just smothering teams in a divisional game that we've said on this podcast multiple times, just take the underdog every single time, and you're probably going to come out ahead with this division. This Browns team, if they get to an underdog, great. I think it's worth waiting, but DTR, definitely better than PJ Walker. But when they did have PJ Walker, like, they were keeping every single game close with this defense. And there's nothing about the Steelers offense that scares me that they can win at margin or even win. In the one game DTR did play, it was awful, but he totally just got thrown into the fire against a Ravens defense that is elite. Or Deshaun, I think it was like the Saturday, Deshaun got ruled out, and all of a sudden a rookie quarterback was playing off of 24 hours notice. So they drafted him for a reason. He looks pretty good in preseason. I think DTR is definitely an upgrade over PJ Walker. Just getting a Browns team that is better than the Steelers team, basically money line +1 whenever it is. It's just an easy bet. Taking a backup quarterback that we talked about usually creates value on the team that he's playing for in his first start.
Okay, very good. Is there a way where, so seeing 1.5 out there, is it better to get this now or wait? Do you anticipate Browns money to come in?
I would say this is probably where it's going to be.
Okay.
It's probably maybe wait. I would say I don't think it's going to go up much, if anything. I don't think waiting is going to hurt you. You want to get like the +1s and then tease those. If you're teasing the Browns, it would be worth waiting for the +1 instead of teasing through 0.
Right. Okay.
By the way, this game was my hot read and my look ahead, so I'm just not on it anymore. I'm in already. We got our bets already, but somehow by the luck of the Steelers, apparently, I'm holding on a +4.5 from the look ahead last week on the Steelers. So thank you to Deshaun Watson for getting out of here on that. We had a +180 on the money line. And then on Sunday night, we grabbed the hot read. I took the under 38.5. The total is like 32.5 at some books right now. Like, it is. I don't know. I got to check Bet Labs. I don't know if that's the lowest total that we've had since like a decade or something.
They literally can't go any lower. Like,
it's so low. So yeah,
we had the Arctic blast week last year, right before Christmas.
Yeah, true. So I'm just gonna ride the CLV. You could try to middle here, just in case you're wondering on the hot reads and look ahead. I don't want to get too cute on it. we're in a great spot with CLV. We did not earn it. We lucked into it. Sometimes we're going to go the other way. We'll get the injury on the wrong side. So I'll sit on the Steelers and the under, and I'm happy with the side. But I think with where the line's at now, I don't mind the Luke pick either here. So just wanted to comment on folks looking at the look ahead of hot read spots.
Oh, and Jill, we can't get enough of this game, and that's why you want to bet a touchdown in this one, a touchdown score.
Yeah, so that Browns Saints game, that Arctic Bowl you were talking about, that closed at 32.5 as well.
Okay.
So right now we're gunning for the top spot here. But yeah, the total in this game continues to drop. So you would think don't bet touchdown scores in this game. And I'm actually going the other way. I'm going to bet a touchdown score in this game, and I'm betting Kareem Hunt to score another touchdown at plus 275. Okay, so Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I'm glad Luke brought that up about the late change, because we look at that game and you think, okay, well, he's just a trash quarterback. It's like, okay, you had 10 hours to decide if you're going to start him. So it probably wasn't going to work out. But these low totals, again, being at 33 points or 32.5, doesn't really matter when it comes to Hunt. 6 touchdowns in the last 5 games, and Deshaun Watson, he only played in one of those. So you can't really just say, well, the quarterback is the reason why we're at this spot, because PJ Walker, DTR, doesn't really matter if it's Watson. And one of the things that's important about that, about him scoring in that stretch, is each one of these games had totals less than 40. So you could be scared off from the touchdown if you want, but they're happening, especially against some pretty strong defenses. Like the Ravens are top 10 in DVOA versus running backs. Kareem Hunt was right out there during the red zone trips. And that's why I love Hunt, because they use him in those trench spots. They let Jerome Ford run between the 20s. Once they get to the red zone, it's Hunt time, because he's got 14 red zone carries since coming back to the Browns, and 12 in that last 5-game stretch. Just to put that in perspective, Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong, they have 9 combined red zone touches in 2 extra games this year. So it's Kareem Hunt's show when they get into the red zone. I know the points are going to be hard to come by, but I trust the Browns to do what the Browns do, and they lead the NFL in rush attempts per game. When they get into the red zone, they're not going to let DTR throw that ball. It's going to be Kareem Hunt going for it. And if you're going to give it to me at plus 275, give it to me all day.
All right. Good deal. Enough of that gross game, and enjoy it. Yeah, so like you said, this goes back to last year's Arctic Blast game. You said it was Denver and New Orleans. Is that what you said?
Saints and Browns.
Saints and Browns. Oh, and the Browns were featured. Okay, very good. Great. Okay. Before we go, we need Brandon Anderson's look ahead. As he noted, he is on Pittsburgh in this game from last week's look ahead at plus 4.5. You took the total under as your hot read Monday. So what I'm excited about is your look ahead is going to feature a Thanksgiving game. What do you got?
Got to do a Thanksgiving game. Look, I'll probably just be back on this one on the podcast for best bets next week also, because I love some of these Thanksgiving trends. First game of the day, Thanksgiving. We're all ready for some football. Just give me the Lions. Lions minus 7.5. Home on Thanksgiving against the Packers. Guess what the last time was that the Lions were favored by 7.5 or more? I don't know, because it's not in our system. It goes so far back. Like, the Lions are never this good. They're never this huge of a favorite against the Packers. Our public is going to be all over this one, betting on the good Lions team we finally have after all these years. The Lions are better. They're just better. They're top 10 running, passing, offense, defense, everything bet DVOA. Packers are bottom 10 at 3 of those 4 things. The Packers lost to the Lions in Lambeau in September by 14 points. I was on the wrong side of that one. I'll be on the right side of this one. The Lions are just the way better team. 5 of their 7 wins are by 12 or more points. They're a great first half team where the Packers aren't scoring. So I think this is, we love our Thanksgiving football, but I think this ends up shaping up a lot like some of the Cowboys games we often watch, where it's like, all right, thanks for the easy match. We got a big early lead. We someone will be the Ezekiel Elliott, eating a turkey leg in the Salvation Army bucket. That's the Lions game here. So we'll do the Thanksgiving trends again. I'm sure next week you're going to hear a lot of these, but just a few notes here. Lions have covered 8 of their last 11 Thanksgiving games, and they are 4-0 perfect against the spread as favorites in our system, which covers the last 2 decades of Thanksgiving games. And Thanksgiving favorites, this is the way to go. You want the big favorites, and you want the public teams on Thanksgiving. Favorites of 7 or more, 17-6 against the spread, 74% on Thanksgiving. And I said a nice thing about Dallas a bit ago, but if you just exclude Dallas, non-Dallas favorites on Thanksgiving, 29-9 ATS, 76%. So we want the Lions here. I wouldn't be surprised if money comes in and this pushes more towards like double digits, especially after some positive results this weekend. So give me the Lions 7.5, and I think this one rises. And we can, cash an early bet before even, I don't know what time you all eat dinner, but dinner will not even be on the table by the time we're already counting our money on Thanksgiving on this one for me.
Could I say to you, though, like the Packers get the Chargers this week? This is kind of it for Jordan Love, because then, like you said, they get the Lions Thanksgiving, then they play the Chiefs. If Jordan Love is going to prove any sort of worth to this Packers organization beyond next year, even if they don't win the game against the Chargers, what kind of game script or what kind of result are you expecting in Packers-Chargers?
Yeah, I mean, that's always part of it with these look-aheads. The Lions are home against the Bears, I believe. They're playing the Bears. I think it's in Detroit. So that certainly should shape up well for them. I don't love the Packers against the Chargers. It's a tough line to bet just because of the Chargers. So whoever knows what's happening with them. So I think, I don't know I'll be in on a side on that one, but I'm not exactly expecting Love to suddenly look like he's been the franchise answer. So I don't know.
He could, though. That defense stinks, Brandon.
I haven't been that impressed with him. He's not accurate. He never has been at any level. He's throwing interceptions. He's putting balls up for grabs. Early in the season, I talked myself into it. Matt LaFleur was giving him a lot of chances to just YOLO it down the field and get some high EPA plays that did hit. So I think that's there. That's the arm talent. But his decision-making, his reading the field, and his accuracy just hasn't really been impressive. So this, to me, we accidentally, Lions Packers on Thanksgiving for years, you'd have been like, oh, easy, take the Packers. And suddenly it's we flipped roles. It's Freaky Friday on Thanksgiving. It's one of these teams just isn't good at all. And one of them is, I think, has a good chance to be the NFC 1 seed. So just keep it easy and take the good team.
Yeah, I hear you. I guess I'm only pushing back because, what if Green Bay does win at home against a defense that's talented but not that very good, and maybe you get inside a touchdown as opposed to laying the extra half point? No, that's my only pushback.
It's a good point. Normally, I would not take a 7.5 here for exactly that reason. You hope it flips to the other side, but I think the fact that the Lions are facing the Bears also, and that even if that stays close, the Bears often keep that one close, but the Lions are almost certainly not going to lose that game. So I just think Detroit is still a bit undervalued. They came out of the bye week last week and just throttled the Chargers defense and put up tons of offense. And I just think that the Lions are going to keep rolling. Packers defense here. Honestly, I don't mind it at 7.5, at 9.5, whatever. So I'm not really too worried to get under a key number here just because I think Detroit's that much better. So that's the reason to not wait and grab it in case it does rise instead.
Okay, fair enough. Very good. That's going to do it for this week's NFL Best Bets episode, NFL Week 11 Best Bets here on the Action Network podcast. We are presented by BetMGM. The full Sunday six-pack NFL betting preview with Raybon and Stuckey is available wherever you get your podcasts. And then don't forget Monday morning. We got a funky week next week because of the holiday, but Monday morning, you'll still get the recap episode with Jill Gallant, who's featured today with us. Evan Abrams, Brandon will appear for his hot read. So be on the lookout for that. We will have a Week 12 Best Bets episode coming your way first thing Wednesday morning, Thanksgiving Eve. Wednesday morning, the podcast will be out for you night owls. It'll be out at 2 o'clock in the morning. So be on the lookout for that. We will have a Best Bets episode ahead of Week 12, Thursday, the Thanksgiving games, and then into the weekend as well next week. Folks, don't forget to download the free award-winning Action Network app to see all of the picks from the guys, other contributors that cover the NFL here at Action Network. For Jill Gallant, Luke Swain, Vegas Refund, Brandon Anderson, Brendan Glasheen, thanks for listening. We will join you again midweek next week for Week 12 Best Bets here on the Action Network podcast presented by BetMGM.